Aloha, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Housing, Human Services, and Transportation Committee. It will now come to order. It is now 1:35 p.m. on Thursday, November 16, 2017. Members and people in our gallery, before we begin, may I please request that we all turn off or silence our cell phones or other noise-making devices. At this time, I'd like to introduce our committee voting members. I'm the chair of this committee, and I'm Councilmember Stacy Crivello. With us today is our committee vice chair, Mr. Bob Carroll.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Aloha. Councilmember Alika Tai.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Thank you. And Councilmember Kelly King.
Aloha, Chair.
Aloha. And joining us today is a non-voting committee member, Councilmember Eli Cochran.
Aloha. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo, members, for being here. With us today also from the administration and our Corporation Counsel, Deputy Corporation Counsel Gary Murai. Thank you. And our Director of Department of Housing and Human Concerns, Carol Ryman. And of course, nothing can get done with our committee staff. Committee Secretary, Tammy Frias, our Legislative Analyst, Samalu Mataafa, and our Legislative Attorney, Mimi Desjardins. Also, who's put in a lot of work through this agenda item is our Legislative Analyst, who's excused today, Shelley Espileta. So before we get into discussion, let's get started with public testimony. Assisting us this afternoon, I will address through our interactive service. Assisting us this afternoon from the Hana District Office is Don Lono.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Don Lono at the Hana office, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Mahalo. And from the Lanai District Office, Denise Fernandez.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Denise Fernandez on Lanai, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Mahalo, Denise. And from our Molokai District Office, Ella Elcon.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Ella Elcon on Molokai, and there is no one here waiting to testify.
Thank you, ladies. In the event we have any testifiers, will you please email our staff, because I will not be addressing your district office at this time. Individuals who will be testifying in the chamber, please sign up at the desk located in the 8th floor lobby, just outside the chamber door. If you will be testifying from the remote testimony location specified on the meeting agenda, please sign up with council staff at the location. Testimony will be limited to items listed on the agenda today, and we all know we just have one item. And pursuant to the rules of the council, each testifier will be allowed to testify for up to 3 minutes per item. At 2.5 minutes, the light will turn yellow, which is a signal for you to end your testimony. When testifying, please state your name and the name of any organization you are representing. Staff, please call our first testifier.
Chair, the first testifier is Barbara J. Henney, who will be followed by Sharon Serafika.
Good afternoon, Council Housing Chairman Stacey, Vice Chair Robert Carroll, and members of the Council Committee. My name is Barbara Henney, and this is deja vu, all over again, because I've been here before. I am the Steering Committee Co-Chair of the Front Street Apartment Tenants Group. My co-chair, Catherine Snyder, is unable to attend because she has an illness related to high blood pressure. As a matter of fact, many tenants wanted to come today, but their disabilities and lack of transportation precluded their being here. Some of them include a tenant who is a US veteran suffering in final stages of cancer. Reuben Parley, who has a broken back from vehicular injuries, and his wife, Rhonda, who has fibromyalgia. Both Ruben and Rhonda operate an after-school program called the Maui Music Mission, highly regarded in West Maui. These people and many others, like myself and other senior citizens on a fixed, limited income, live on the financial edge. Many work 2 or more low-paying jobs and are facing the likelihood of homelessness should our rents be raised and become market value in August 4, 2019. As tenants and taxpayers on Maui, we ask that you consider passing the draft resolution HAT 39, because we think the public deserve to have a chance to recoup their investment to the development of Front Street apartments from the property owners. Several $1 million in benefits and tax exemptions were given in 1999 to the property owners with the understanding that the lease would be for 50 years. The building owner is using an IRS loophole and trying to renege on its promise, saying the lease rent on the land in 2015 increased. I'd like to ask a few questions if I still have time. Has anyone on the council reviewed the contract between the building owner and landowner? Does anyone know what the lease rent increase was? Has any independent appraiser looked into the real value of the property? Do we know if proper procedures were followed in attempting to convert Front Street apartments from low-income to market-priced homes? Can't we simply buy the buildings or the land to reduce the cost of any purchase? From a tenant point of view, I can tell you, am I short? I can tell you we believe proper procedures weren't followed. We were the last to know about the conversion, and when we learned about it, it was too late to technically act on it because the deadline had supposedly passed. Okay?
Thank you. You need to wrap it up.
Thank you.
Members, any clarification or questions for the testifier? Thank you for being here. Our next testifier?
Chair, the next testifier is Sharon Serafica, followed by Anna Barbeau.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Serafica, as you well know. I've lived at Front Street Apartments for 13 years, in Lahaina for 20 years. Most of the testimony that you've heard in a lot of political agendas and financial issues is very stressful and causes a lot of anxiety in our community, our neighborhood of Front Street Apartments. What I'd like to do today is do something a little different and tell you a success story about our family. Like I said, I've lived in Front Street Apartments 13 years. I was a single working adult teaching preschool and special ed at Camp 3rd in Lahaina. I retired 3 years ago. I met my husband 6 years after that. We were married. We stayed at Front Street Apartments because we loved the community. He worked in construction, building pools, houses, in some of what I like to call the rich and famous district, but also many local people, Napili, Hanakawai. When construction slowed down, he opened his own business, a handyman business. And we have had some success with that. He works on the west side, servicing people such as restaurants, Honus, Malas, Smokehouse, many of the local salons. I can't even name the private owners, but we make an okay living. But with the cost of personal insurance, taxes and business expenses, we're just getting by. But we're happy. If it wasn't for affordable housing, it would be a lot different. A few years ago, my sister, recovering from an organ transplant, came to live with us in Hawaii. Her recovery went well, but a few months after she lived with us, my granddaughter, who had a history of mental illness, became pregnant. She gave birth to a healthy child, but with the hormonal imbalance, she had a very severe episode, and we ended up taking custody of the child, baby Sage. She was here a moment ago. She's gone now. But my granddaughter could not leave her apartment. She lost her jobs and her apartment, and she ended up on the streets. The state flipped the bill for a lot of her care. We found her a year ago in very bad shape. We moved her in with us, and her and the baby are bonding, and she's part-time working now. Without our affordable housing, we would not have had opportunity to give her a home. Many of the people at Front Street Apartments are hard-working, responsible, respectful people.
To wrap it up.
All
Thank
right.
you.
What I'd like to say is Front Street Apartments gives a chance to people in need, but good, hard-working people. Please help us. May I just give 30 more seconds to one of my neighbors? I did not put him on the list. He is a retired veteran.
I'm sorry. We just limit our testimonies to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I cannot tell his story. He would like me to just say 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. 3
All right.
minutes.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a moment. Members, any questions or clarification for the testifier? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair, the next testifier is Anna Barbeau, followed by Maria Pocatera.
Aloha. My name is Anna Barbeau. I am a voting, tax-paying resident since 1968, originally in Hawaii as a Navy brat. Front Street Affordable Apartments was presented as affordable rentals in 2001 for the workforce residents of Maui County. It was and is a wonderful blessing for the voting citizens housed within. The commitment of 50 years of affordability included government assistance in the form of tax credits, which need be upheld. Many tenants, myself included, were invited through the authority of the Housing Resource Division to move in. In my case, I was first invited to reside in the Halimaha'olu Lahaina Surf Complex, which is right next door to Front Street Apartments. But I declined as I did not have the need at that time, opting to be moved to the back of the line and give my spot to someone in more need than I. As time passed, my circumstances changed, and luckily the same agency, government agency, which had offered me residence at Lahaina Surf, contacted me with the opportunity of affordable rent at Front Street Apartments. I accepted, as especially with my advancing age, the 50-year term of affordability would allow this to be my final move. I don't need to be packing up and moving in my 70s, hello? The 50-year affordability terms, which is clearly stated within the tenant move-in contract, need be honored. At no time was I ever informed that tenants were being used as placeholders. As the developers have been allowed 17 years of tax-free income, they in turn need to honor the tenant rental contract. I'm also grateful for the supportive written testimony which has been submitted to council by Attorney Lance Collins. This is one of the tenants. This is Joe Vautron, who is in his 80s. He worked with the American military over in Vietnam. He gave us not his life, he's still alive, but he worked there, and now they want to boot him out too? This is ridiculous. So anyway, I also get questions from our very intelligent kids. They say, Miss Barbeau, hey, do you know how other countries have displaced people and disappeared people? Is that what's happening to us? And I tell them, no, 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 our government is not corrupt. And we vote in our good Maui leaders here to assist us. Please trust our Maui government. This is what the kids are learning. They're watching. This is the future. So 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 6:54. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And please understand, this is serious stuff. And these are the kids that are watching. And me. 20 years Department of Education.
Thank you, members. Thank you. Members, any questions or clarification for the testifier? If not, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Chair, the next testifier is Maria Pocatera, followed by Tasha Kama.
Good afternoon, honorable staff. My name is Maria Alejandra Pocatera, and I live on Front Street Apartments since May 2011, on Maui since 2003. My son was 2 months when we moved in. Many of us Front Street Apartments renters are hardworking families with bottom incomes, like I, myself. I am a single mother of managing 2 jobs to have ends meet because my child's father refuses to help raise his kid. That's another story. But between the government's help and my income, I have been able to support my child by myself for 6 years, thanks to Front Street Apartments. The households of this complex are either families with young kids or senior citizens who are not able to pay high rent. Many of us live here for 5, 10, 15 years. I appeal to the common sense of all decision makers to help us by respecting our seniority, maintaining our current rent as it is now affordable for all of us. In my case, this is the maximum I can afford. I understand business is business, but we are dealing here with people's life. For me and my son, the sole thought of having to move out and not having where to go sets the fear that I might even have to be homeless in the current plans come to fruition. I also have to say that he loves his place. Mama, I love this apartment. We're close to school, planning to graduate from Lahaina Luna eventually. So even if they just give us some time, 20 more years even, that will give us a chance to the ones who are dying to die and the ones who are beginning to live to have a good living, good quality in this beautiful place. Thank you so much for listening and for your time. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Members, any questions or clarification for the testifier? Thank you.
Chair, the next testifier is...
Yes, before you begin, I'd like to recognize our council member, Yukile Sugimura. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Chair.
I'm sorry.
Chair, the next testifier is Tasha Kama, followed by Stan Franco.
Aloha, Chair Cavello and members of the committee. My name is Tasha Kama, and I'm testifying today on behalf of Faith Action for Community Equity as their lead organizer here on Maui. I want to share a little bit about what Faith Action for Community Equity is for those who don't know. Faith Action for Community Equity is a multicultural people, richly diverse in ethnicity, languages, and economic and faith. We are committed to serving our people, and we're committed to caring about their needs, because their needs are our needs. We are in support of the resolution before you today entitled, Urging the Governor of the State of Hawaii and the Hawaii State Legislature to support affordable housing at the Front Street Apartments. We have an obligation to care for our people of this county, and an IRS loophole is not an excuse for us to do nothing. If anything, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of this county to provide them with housing. Housing it's a right. It is almost a fun, it's like breathing. It's like air. It's the stuff that we need to live, to be successful. And it just kind of throws me that the developers in 2007 went to the IRS to be able to get them to be able to come in a few years later to be able to say, hey, we want to sell this on the open market. We really want to break our promises to these people that we said that these would be affordable rentals for 50 years. People who do that should be strung up. It is not right. It is not fair. And FACE is about equity. And so we're going to be testifying today, and we're going to see this thing all the way through until our people in the Front Street apartments are able to stay for 50 years as according to what their original plan and their lease said. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any questions or clarification for the testifier? If not, thank you for being here. Our next testifier.
Chair, the next testifier is Stan Franco, followed by Joseph Deloche.
Thank you for having me, Chair and members. I'm Stan Franco, and I speak for FACE Maui as the co-chair of the Housing Committee. The member organizations, including several churches, are very concerned about housing for our low-income brothers and sisters. We stand with the tenants of the Front Street apartments, and we ask for this resolution to be passed. We hear in the testimony presented in support of this resolution from the tenants, one Nancy Silva, saying, have the state purchased the property and changed the wording in the bill from 30 years to in perpetuity. Sean Power saying he owns a small cabinet shop on the west side, and if his housing unit goes to market, I don't know how my family will be able to make our monthly bills. And Rhonda Polly saying, I'm disabled with a limited income. Without a minimum standard of housing for our residents, what hope is there for us? I ask you to listen to the people and their voices. These are the people we work for, all of us, including me and you. It's hard for me to stand here and listen to a promise made to people that for 50 years would be affordable, and now it goes market in 15. This resolution is to our governor and to our state legislature. So my question is to you and to me and to all of us. What are we doing about not having long-term affordable housing developments in Maui County? What are we doing as the people? See, when I asked the late Elmer Cavallo about who will help us create affordable housing for our Maui residents, he told me, if not us, who then? If not us, who then? This is on us. Yes, we're going to have to ask the state legislature for money, but it's on us, the people of this island, to make sure that these residents can stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification for the testifier? No, thank you for being here.
Chair, the next testifier is Joseph Deloche, followed by Jesus Sanchez.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Joseph Deloche. I've came to the first meeting. I had someone knock on my door a while back on, I believe it was December 1st, when I was addressed with this issue about we're going to probably have to move. Anyway, I'm not feeling too well today, and I'm sick, and I wasn't going to come, but they told me to come. And I looked for other apartments. I can't even qualify, even on low income, even with the money I make now. Even if I got a job, I still wouldn't qualify for low income. It's very hard for me to speak today because I'm not feeling well at all. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I love my community. I love my Front Street apartments. I think it's terrible that we could be in this situation like we are right now. It is what it is, and I apologize. I'm a little emotional because I am really sick today, and I'm not feeling well, but I told them I'll show up. You know, most of us, I think all of us, are on limited and fixed incomes, and even if I have to get rid of my car, I'll get rid of my car. It's a junky old car, but I can't afford even to pay the insurance and the registration. If my insurance for Kaiser is going to go up 30 to 45%, where's the money going to come from? Where am I going to get it? Anyway, enough of me. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening to me, and please try to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or clarification for the testifier? Thank you for being here, sir.
Chair, the next testifier is Jesus Sanchez, followed by Ronald Proctor.
Honorable council members, my name is Jesus Sanchez. I live at the Front Street Apartments for 16 years. I work as a housekeeping for 10 years. I am a father of 2 kids, my wife. Mr. Chairman and fellow Maui County Council members, I appreciate your time you give to us to help to solve our problem. We are at risk to lose the place where we live. For 16 years, the Front Street apartment were built as they built this place as a low-income housing units. Now, without noticing to us, they never tell us before until last year start coming up, then they raise up to market value, the units, which blocks my possibilities to keep renting here at this place. And put me at risk to become homeless. Please, I beg you to help us to stay at this place. We love us home, and we keep up. We love to keep Maui pretty, you know. It's not nice to have homeless on the streets, and especially in the front street, which is plenty people walking around, and doesn't look nice. I don't want to become one of those. You know? I really will appreciate if you guys can help us to do something to keep this place. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Hawaii.
Thank you. Members, any clarifications or questions for the testifier? No. Thank you for being here, sir.
Chair, the next testifier is Ronald Proctor.
Aloha, my name is Ron Proctor. I'm a resident of Front Street Apartments and have been for the last 5 years. I've lived on Maui for 7. I just wanted to address a situation. In the last 3 years, 4 years, I've received many, many phone calls about traffic. As a manager at a local restaurant that employed over 100 people, a lot which are minimum wage earners, we always tried to hire from the west side simply because of traffic problems. During season, you have people that live in Kihei, the other side of the island. When they have to come to work around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, which is the worst time, we had a problem with people getting to the job on time, along with all the guests that were coming to the west side. So all these people that you have working in these restaurants, which are, like I said, mostly minimum wage jobs, can't afford to live in Lahaina. I myself waited 2 years to get into Front Street Apartments, having lived in a one-room, renting a room, bedroom for $600 a month. where I could finally afford to move in to an apartment. We worry about traffic. And if you don't have enough affordable housing for the people that live on the west side to work in the restaurants that are continuously coming online, hotels that are being built, you're only adding to the traffic problem when what you really want, you're looking for a solution. The solution is to have people who live on the west side work on the west side, not be on the other side and have to come all the way across. Public transportation somewhat is an option, but in the restaurant business, as most of you know, we're open late. We stay open till 11 o'clock, midnight. At that point, there is no public transportation. Getting to work is not a problem. Getting home is. So when you keep affordable housing, you also take care of some of your traffic problem, which is another big problem. Like I said, I've had 3 different surveys in probably the last year of people, you know, what can we do? Can we build a bypass? Can we do this? Can we do that? Well, what I'm saying is have places available on the west side for your workforce, and this is one of the spots that we have available. So if we keep it, I think we'll solve more than one problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any clarifications or questions for the testifier? Thank you.
Chair, there's no one else waiting to testify.
We have another testifier, and you can fill out the form in the front of the lobby later.
Thanks. Aloha. My name's Gary Kubota. I've been a journalist for many years here. Before this, I was a community organizer in the early 1970s for a group called Kakua Hawaii. We helped to organize and fight several evictions, including Oda Camp, Waihole Waikane, Hikina Lane in Kalihi, Chinatown, and we were very successful. And the one thing we learned from that is that unity is important, and morality over law is important. Laws can be changed if you believe that it is wrong, and actions combined with support can move mountains. In this particular instance, what we have is just basically a handful of people who are speaking for a lot of other people. I've been to their last general meeting. There are more than 40 people there. The problem was that a couple of them were on dialysis. People were on walkers walking. It took them like 3 minutes to go across the parking lot, So this isn't necessarily representative of the number of people or the kinds of people that we're talking about. But it does represent the people who are pretty able-bodied enough to get here. This is a movement. I have been talking with the AARP Hawaii representative, the new advocacy director, and he'll be talking to Roz Baker about what they can do. And he has experience, especially in eviction law. The churches here, United Church of Christ, Catholic churches are rallying behind this. It's a new ball game. We're going to be able to bring a lot more public support at the state legislature because we'll be organizing on Oahu and statewide. What we have here is a multi-ethnic community, and that's our strength. We have Hawaiians, Tongans, we have newcomers with a lot of experience, we have people from all walks of life, teachers. I think that the main thing that I want to convey is that this will help to support. This resolution is real general, but it will help to support Rosalind Baker and Angus McKelvey as they move forward. And it's a vehicle for more conversation to occur in the future and more research to be done. As you kind of can guess, there are some facts here that have never been disclosed, and we're just beginning to find out about it. I think the taxpayers of Maui County, myself included, who used to own 2 houses and paid property taxes, I never got an exemption. And I think that there's a lot of people who have never had this kind of exemption. And they pay their taxes. They don't try to get out of it. They want to support the county. So all we're asking is for a fair shake. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification for the testifier? Not. Thank you for being here. Any more testifiers from the gallery? Members, as there are no further individuals in the council chamber or district offices wishing to testify without objection, I will now close public testimony.
No objections.
So members, we have one item on the agenda, and we've heard the testimony, and this is like a hanaho for us as we constantly try to work together to find some resolve. But before we move further, I'd like to have our Department of Housing and Human Concerns, if you have any comments. Director?
Yes, thank you. Aloha, Chair. I know I've gone on record to say that, the department, the administration, the mayor, nobody's happy with the situation. And, we are working with the state. We're working with Senator Roz Baker, Representative Angus McKelvey. They introduced a bill last year. It was filed, and they will be reintroducing another bill this year, next session, to try to keep the units affordable and or to acquire the property. We're very sympathetic with the tenants, and, we're trying our best to help with the situation. Thank you.
Mr. Morai, any comments from Corporation Counsel?
Nothing further from me, Madam Chair. However, I'll be glad to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you. So our agenda item HHT-39, Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Project for Sale under Qualified Contract Request, Front Street Apartments, Lahaina, HHT-39. The committee is in receipt of the following. County Communications 16-133 from the Director of Housing and Human Concerns, transmitting correspondence entitled Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Project for Sale under a qualified contract request in accordance with Section 42(H)(6) of the Internal Revenue Code. 2. Correspondence dated November 8, 2017 from the Department of Corporation Counsel, transmitting a proposed resolution entitled urging the Governor of the State of Hawaii and the Hawaii State Legislature to support affordable housing at Front Street Apartments. The purpose of the proposed resolution is to urge the Governor and the Hawaii State Legislature to support affordable housing at Front Street Apartments, consisting of 142 affordable housing units located adjacent to Kinui Street and Waine'i Street, Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, and situated on property identified by tax map key (2). The committee may also consider whether to recommend adoption of the proposed resolution with or without revisions. The committee may also consider the filing of County Communication 16-133 and other related action. So members, I bring this before us for your consideration, and I'm going to open the floor for discussion. But I'd like to just highlight a few items. The proposed resolution, what we're doing in support of our state senator from West Maui and our state House representative, the proposed resolution urges the Governor and state legislature to support affordable housing at Front Street Apartments. The state of Hawaii and federal governments provided more than $1.5 million, in tax credits to the developers of this project. The County of Maui has also provided substantial real property tax subsidies to the property since 2001, with the intention that Front Street apartments were to remain affordable for 50 years or until December 31st, 2051. So members, please refer to correspondence dated November 16, 2017 from the Acting Director of Finance confirming the amount of real property tax subsidy the developers have realized from 2001 to current. So in other words, the land is based like on nonprofit ownership. And if you look in our records, they've been exempt in the amount of $2,103 to $662.52. That's the amount of money that we have not received from real property taxes. We also understand there is a loophole in the IRS code that would allow the project owner to sell the complex after 15 years, removing Front Street apartments from the affordable rental market. And we know the effects and the impact, and we all realize the shortage of affordable housing on this island as well as in West Maui, especially with the numbers of homeless residents that we have in our county. We also understand Front Street Apartments is a state project, but because this directly impacts residents of our county, many of whom testified this afternoon, thank you for being here, we stand with the governor and the state legislature to do what is pono to keep the units affordable. I ask for your full support, members, that we look to and urge state legislators during this upcoming legislative session to continue to exhaust all options to keep Front Street Apartments affordable, as was the original intent of this project. So at this time, I'm going to open up our floor for discussion before I read for it on the resolution. And open for the Department of Housing and Human Concerns. Councilmember Kelly King.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this forward. I support this. I wish it had a little bit stronger language in here and that we could actually be supporting a bill. You know, I'm sure there's going to be a bill resubmitted, but we don't have a bill number in here. I guess my question would be for maybe Corp Counsel is, could you explain, I'm looking at Mr. Kubota's testimony, and he's got a nice timeline in here that explains the loophole, but it looks like federal tax laws were changed after the fact that affected our state legislation on this project. Can you just maybe explain what is meant by this loophole? Because it almost looks like an after the fact change in our IRS code.
Madam Chair, I'm not familiar with this so-called loophole. I am slightly aware. I'm somewhat familiar with low-income housing tax credits, and it sounds like this was a low-income housing tax credit project. And I've not heard anyone say that there was anything illegal that happened. It appears that the developer or the owner just simply took advantage of a provision in the tax code.
Chair.
Yes.
Could I request that maybe we could ask Mr. Kubota to go through this section in his testimony that says, because I apologize for not asking the question when he was here, but I was assuming that our staff could answer it. But the portion that says that the IRS tax laws were changed to enable investors to sell their low-income housing projects after 15 years. And it looks like it was done in 2007, but we had already created this low-income housing in 2001. So,
yeah, I don't have a problem. Mr. Kubota can remain as a resource person. I want to ask if, before we address this, Mr. Kubota, members, anybody else has any questions at this time? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. In my research, what I found was in 2007, there was a letter, and I'll send the letter, email it to you. It's a letter made by the Affordable Housing Coalition, and that's actually a group of investors and lenders, including Sun America, which was the original developer and corporation that proposed Front Street affordable housing. And they went to the IRS in support of an amendment, a final rule, that essentially said, well, you know, we want to make sure that people who invest in this make a profit, and it's a fair return. That's exactly what the wording was, fair return. And so after so many years, you know, we have to give them an opportunity if things are going bad or not going as well as they can, the option of trying to let the state or someone buy the property, and if they can't or if there's no response, then maybe put it up for public bidding by private investors. And another option was just converting it over to market price rents. What happened was, I believe in 2012, the final rule came into effect. And that rule did not really spell out a whole lot of what the procedure should be in terms of public notification and things like that. That's one of the problems here. You know, where, I mean, usually when something like this happens, you have like newspaper advertising, you have notification of all parties involved, including tenants and including the county. I believe the county is saying that they got notified late by the state. And, you know, I don't want to point fingers. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's spilt milk. But at the same time, I think that we have to realize that that's one thing that we're looking at right now, the procedures, you know, because somehow not everybody got to participate in the discussion, and therefore the answer was not readily available. We didn't get a lot of the facts. And that needs to be brought to bear in some way in the future. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about how the rules got changed. And the rules did get changed, and there was opposition by low-income housing coalitions in New York, frankly, and questioning the process and what procedures would be put in place. So basically, that's what I'm referring to anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but can I just follow up?
Sure.
So the IRS is allowed to change the tax code without creating a federal law, or did this go to Congress?
It went to a public hearing within the IRS itself like that, and that's where the letter was sent. What happened was back in, it was one of these bills passed by Congress. It was very general, and the wording was such that it said, well, you know, if there's a need to purchase the building, say a low-rent building, then, you know, they should take a look at it, and we'll give it, well, IRS, you have a crack at it. You get the wording and everything together. There was no mention at that time, frankly, and there was no mention of land. They were talking about just the building and the purchase of the building. And somehow, when the IRS came out with the rules, someone complained, wow, you know, they're talking about the building. How can you talk about buying the land now? I mean, those are two different things. So, you know, there was a lot of confusion, I think, on the part of the people that were trying to pass and get something passed. Mm-hmm. And the end result is this. I did talk to someone with the Low-Income Housing Coalition. Well, we exchanged emails, and he said that they've encountered problems in about 5 different states in the United States, and, you know, because of this. I did not ask him what the particulars were, because I was just trying to focus on this particular thing. But it sounds like perhaps Congress ought to revisit what it indirectly created.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer. I think I understand a little bit better. I'm just surprised that they're able to go back to a project that was created way before this. You know, it's like reaching back in and it appears to apply to anything that was on the books that was open as affordable housing at the time. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, Chair. I really support what we have before us today, but once this goes out, for all the members over here in this council that really believe an injustice has been done, it's going to take more than just going over there and approving this today. It's going to take more one-on-one, talking to our legislators, actually going to Honolulu and making an all-out effort. The reso is fine, it gets our foot in the door, but it's not really the answer. The answer is us taking the time and making that extra effort, and that's probably the only way we're going to get some resolution that's satisfactory to this. I will pledge myself to go over there on this. I already went and set aside one day that I can go over there and trying to set appointments with not only Ross Baker, but those that hopefully we can convince to go over there and assist us in this. And I would encourage everybody to try to do what they can on their own, not the whole council, but individually going over there and trying to see what difference we can make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Any comments or further discussion from the members? Do you have your hand, Ms. Sugimura?
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. And I think through budget and at various times we did hear from the tenants of French Street apartment, very, very heartfelt, and feel for them and what they have to go through. So in light of the information, I wonder if Corp Council knows if there are any lawsuits that, or any way of changing the federal law that Gary Kubota talks about, or is there something that we can do to help that? Because if that's the loophole, maybe with Senator Hirono's office or some of our congressional friends.
Mr. Murai.
Well, I suppose you could lobby your Congress members to amend the tax code. I know that the director had just mentioned to me that HHFDC has attempted to close that loophole by, and I'm not familiar with the details. I may have to defer to her for the details, but not approving projects unless the developer agrees to waive their right to exercise their rights to sell the property at certain points. Because in these agreements with, in these low-income housing tax credit deals, there are certain points in which the developer can either exercise to extend the affordability period and seek additional tax credits, because at some point these tax credits will expire. In this case, it sounds, and I'm not familiar with this particular deal, but it sounds from what I gather from hearing that these tax credits would have expired in 50 years. I'm guessing that somewhere along the line there were options that the developer could exercise and did exercise.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, any further questions or comments or discussion? Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. And so, am I to understand that it looks like on the timeline for Mr. Kubota under 2016, there's a SB 1266 pushed forward by Senator Baker and Gil Agaran, and I guess it went into conference committee, got deferred. So is there something still alive at the state level, do you know?
I'm not sure if it's still alive or where it's at, but there is legislation that Ross Baker and our Maui state representatives, as well as Senator Agaran and McKelvey, are working on, yeah. And so this reso is to have us come with a unified support and do what they're trying to pass, because the last legislation was the offering of, or I guess the threat of eminent domain. in the state legislature. So I think that particular bill did not make it.
Okay. Speaking of eminent domain, would that be something possible here on the county's behalf? Because I know I have a PAF put out when this was first talked about, and it's still being worked on.
If the budget committee would hear it, I mean, that entails from time of appraisal all the way to the eminent domain. But we take into serious consideration, and this is just my opinion, that somehow or other we want to recoup at least this monies and hold to the fire to these developers. And then the consideration of expenditures would have to come from our budget committee.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And I think the reason why I wanted this PAF to go through in reference to eminent domain was I recall Chair Hokama mentioned if there was a plan in place, he would entertain it. And also, I have some excerpts out of a Civil Beat article with Member Guzman also sharing his support should that route be, that door be opened. There's a possibility. So, I mean, I get it that we want to recoup what we've lost, basically, but I can't, to lose it, to take a chance, I think, with the state. I mean, there's no harm in what you're proposing, so I support it. But I think to really put some teeth and some force and effect behind a movement, for me to invest the 8.7 appraised value, which breaks down the 140 units to little over 62,000 per unit, and to keep it affordable in perpetuity via the county here, I mean, that speaks volumes to me, and I think would really support and allay the fears of the people that you see here and don't see here today. So that's something that I would surely love to one day hopefully entertain sooner rather than later. And I just, I think kind of punting everything to the state, I don't, I mean, yay, let's try anything, but I sure would like to see if we can do something on, on our own home front to move an eminent domain idea forward. But those are just my comments at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know what meeting you were at, but I remember Mr. Hokama slamming the desk saying he's not going to rescue the state for what they're held responsible to. But hey, if it works, it works. But, the defeat of the bill from the state was the purchase of the project. The owners are asking double the appraised value, I think, of $15.4 million on that, and to the value of $8.7 million. But the eminent domain is not something you shut the door on. So if you have the opportunity to have the budget committee hear it, because who knows, maybe we'd have to address the land value at its nonprofit value. And that might be different from the market value than what they're trying to appraise the land. Councilmember King.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I believe that since we're in the second year, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Marai, but since we're in the second year of the state legislature, that this bill has been deferred, but it can come back without going through all of the same, to where it was deferred from, at whatever level it was deferred at, that it can come back and it can be picked up without going through the process all over again. Is that correct?
Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's my understanding of the state legislative session. It's a 2-year session, so we're in the second year. The bill was to condemn and buy the property for the public interest. It was deferred by the House Senate Conference Committee, so it was a Senate bill. It doesn't look like there was a companion House bill, or the companion House bill died. But and I don't know if this is the proper time to do it, but I would like us to look at inserting support for the bill in this language in the resolution, because we're basically just asking the governor and the state legislature to support affordable housing. But if we could insert some language that says by passing Senate Bill 1266 or its revision or replacement or its House companion bill, then we can be a little more specific as to what we're asking them to do. Because if they pass that bill, problem solved.
I'll have the director from Housing respond to that.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for that statement. In our discussions with Senator Roz Baker and Angus McKelvey, they told us that it's very difficult to resurrect a bill that's been deferred, and it was their preference to introduce new bill. And last year there was a companion bill, House bill. I don't remember the number, but there was a companion bill, and that was killed in committee.
Do you feel it would be helpful to put a reference to that bill or its replacement in the resolution?
If you put, I don't know if it's replacement, because it wouldn't be a replacement bill. It would be just a new bill introduced.
Right, but it would basically replace that bill. I mean, it would be a revision or replacement. In the way it's worded in Mr. Kubota's testimony is, the bill is deferred in the House Senate Conference Committee with the option of renewing or revising the legislation or introducing a different bill. So it could be referred to all three, which is what I was trying to do. But I guess my question is, do you think that would be helpful for us to make that?
May I say something? My understanding with our state legislature at this time is they're going to be submitting a revised bill.
Okay.
And basically we're working with them and processing this resolution in support, and then we can follow through after.
Okay, but I guess my question was, would it be helpful to put a reference in there to support, urging them to pass the revised bill instead of just blanket? I mean, everybody's going to say they support it, but what kind of action?
I know we sound generic here, but it's really not so generic when we talk specifically about French Street. And for the governor's efforts as well as our state legislators. I would like to, and it's up to the body, that we support what we're trying to pass through as is now because of the conversation that we're having as well as the Front Street Advocacy Group is having with our state legislators. Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, not having a bill number or referring to another bill is actually the better way to go the way it is right now, because we really don't know until we go over there and bring this and use this, like I said, our foot in the door, and we work with them. We don't know if somebody else we can convince to put in a bill. So I've gone forward many times to the legislature, and it actually, what we have before us now is probably more effective. Thank you, Chair.
Because we don't have a bill number, right? Yeah. Yeah, to reference and, an actual bill number. Mr. Atai.
Chair, I'm reviewing this resolution, and paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, paragraph 4, where it says, whereas a loophole in the Internal Revenue Service tax code allows for owner, Front Street Affordable Housing Partners, to sell the complex after 15 years, thereby removing Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental market, semicolon, and as I read that, I would like to make an amendment or recommend amending this to read, this following paragraph to read, whereas the owner, Front Street Affordable Housing Partners, asserts a loophole in the Internal Revenue Service tax code allows it to remove Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental market, semicolon, and the reasoning is that while the owner has asserted with the assistance of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation that it may terminate the affordability requirement of this project after 15 years pursuant to some provision of the IRC, that the assertion has not yet been confirmed by a court of competent jurisdiction or the IRS. The developer of this project made many representations to the Maui County Council when it obtained fast-track approval to build the project, as well as generous federal and state tax credits by promising this 51-year affordable restriction. So there is no reason for us to accept this owner's unsupported assertion simply because the HHFDC has resigned itself to just accept this assertion. So, you know, I think looking at that paragraph, rechanging it, makes this resolution more clear about that owner.
So I don't have HHFDC here, any representative, but and it's again up to the committee, why are we asserting HHFDC into this resolution?
No, they're not. They're not. It's talking about the owner.
Right. I
Yeah.
thought I heard you mention HHFDC.
Could he read it again?
Yeah.
The paragraph should be read. Clerk, you want to read it, or?
The fourth paragraph in the resolution, fourth whereas clause reads currently, whereas a loophole in the Internal Revenue Service Tax Code allows for owner Front Street Affordable Housing Partners to sell the complex after 15 years, thereby removing Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental market, semicolon, and.
Right. And it should read to.
And what is his Mr. Atai's amendment?
I didn't catch the whole thing. If you could reread.
I'll read it. Whereas the owner, Front Street Affordable Housing Partners, asserts a loophole in the Internal Revenue Service Tax Code allows it to remove Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental market, semicolon, and. Just changing the wordings around, mainly exposing what this owner, after pledging to us, has now positioned itself.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. Although I understand the sentiments of Mr. Atai completely, but we really don't want to focus on the owner. We want to focus on the problem and have the state take ownership of what has transpired, because it was the state in making the contract that had the loophole, not the owner. And do we really want to go over there and have them focus on the owner and try to work with the owner? Like I said, this is our foot in the door. This is what allows us to go forward. I have no objection to anything that goes out, but the focus really should be on the state and trying to get the state to be responsible. I just don't want to see I go up there and have my cover letter and make an appointment and tell, hey, you know, you guys got to work with the owner. This guy's, that might not work out as well as we would like it to work out. Because we're not going to get anything from the owner, I can assure you that, unless it's a court, something goes through the court or what. Because we are looking to the state to give some resolution. We're not looking to the owner to give resolution. But I will support anything that we can get out of here so we can move forward. Thank you, Chair.
I believe the advocacy group has been working with our state legislature, so I'd like to ask Mr. Kubota to come forward and if you'd like to, if there's no objections.
No objection.
If you'd like to make comments on Mr. Atai's and the existing resolution that we're trying to get through.
And I'm not objecting to what Mr. Atai is saying. I think that Actually, many residents share the same sentiments. At the same time, Councilman Carroll was correct in terms of the focus as well. I think that this is what I did. I read it, the resolution, and I sent it to Roz and I sent it to Angus, and both of them went over it and they said okay. So I'm not about to, I'm not about to change anything at this point like that, because the whole thing is to support their efforts and make sure that this issue is on the table when the 2018 legislative session begins. And thank you.
Chair, can I just ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Kubota, question from Councilmember King.
I really appreciate you clearing it up. I have a little bit of issue with the word loophole, because it looks like it wasn't a loophole in the tax code. It was a change in the tax code that's allowing this to happen.
Okay, I don't object to having a change, putting change inside there like that. I think it was just an emotional.
Okay, well, no, I just want to make sure that that is what's happening, because when I first heard about this issue, and I heard the word loophole, that kind of goes back to me, whereas, puts the onus on the original contract and why we didn't see it if there was a loophole. But a change after the fact of the tax code is different. So that was something we had no control over that would happen at the federal level. I don't understand why those kinds of changes apply to things that happened before the change. I mean, I think if they were going to change the tax code, it should apply to everything after that change.
Oh,
so I don't know if that's the loophole that you're talking about, but.
Well, if I may, also, if the loophole enables investors to sell the low-income housing projects after 14 years in service.
I understand that, but
so I think a loophole is much more strong.
But the agreement was made back in 2001, and then this change was not made in the tax code until 2012. So it's an after-the-fact change that affected this agreement, which
because they didn't want to
is that what we're referring to as a loophole? That it's somehow letting us go back to an agreement that we originally had and allow them out of it.
Yeah, the wording is, I see what you mean, and I think it's just in general, I think the view was basically looking at the intent. The intent was to have investors get a fair return. I think that was the intent, and I think that was the intent of the Congress when it passed it. But what happened in the process, and this is just from a tenant's point of view, when you pass something like this, you say, okay, well, we all want to have everybody have a win-win situation. But this win-win situation was not such that people were able to participate in a discussion of it. And so it allowed, for whatever reason, because the process was not defined enough, it allowed people to bypass other people. And that I think is the loophole, in my opinion. Because when you do that and you restrict conversation and you don't tell people what you're about to do, it really limits the amount of ideas that can come forth as to, and it really raises the question of, whether everything was exhausted in order to find a meaning that the end result was really for them to sell or to raise the rents. So that's, from my point of view, the loophole. And you're correct. I mean, it's like playing a baseball game and you have these rules, right? And then you're losing and you say, hey, you know what? Let me change the rules here and let's start even again. I don't think anybody in the business world or any baseball fan would ever think of doing something like that. So when I say that, give us a fair shake, that's what I mean like that. People should be held to their commitments. In this particular instance, I'm not really sure what the land lease rent was in terms of how much it was raised that triggered the building owners to say, well, we have to sell. That's never been disclosed. But I do know that in terms of as a former business manager, you can almost expect that there's going to be stepped up increases over time because it's in the contract. And before you sign the contract, you know, you try to figure out what the outer edge of it is going to be, if you're a business person, or else you eat it, or else you sell the business, you know. But you don't just try to take advantage of the situation, frankly, by doing what's happening right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, I agree, and thank you for that. I think a lot of what we do as legislators, Chair, is we try to make sure there aren't loopholes when we create laws. And so to me, this is more of a loophole in the tax code change, because it wasn't there before that change was made, correct? And that's what I think we need to be clear about, because it wasn't that the mistake was made in the original agreement. The change was made to the IRS code that allowed that.
So just for discussion purposes, I look at it as Sun Investors, Sun America Affordable Housing Partners, the investors, joined this coalition so that this loophole could be created so that they could finagle and get their profits and make all the changes.
Right.
You know, that's the loophole that was created, even
Right.
if it was after their map was already made. And it says, well, you know what, we're going to have to change it. So this is a loophole that we need after 14 years. So,
And I'm for creating our own loophole and create eminent domain.
well, I think if you are interested in that, or members are interested, as what Ms. Cochran made mention, then that's a process that can be allowed through the proper committee at this time, because it involves dollars, so it goes to our budget committee in that part. Ms. Sigmund and Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. So I wonder if we could hear from Buddy or Carol in terms of what they know about this loophole, if they do, if you have any more information regarding what happened.
Director or Buddy?
Thank you. So what I was able to piece together is if a project is able to prove that it cannot continue to be sustainable, they're able to apply for this qualified contract price, and they're able to put on the market the project for a period of 1 year. And to do that, they had to apply via HHFDC. So HHFDC accepted their application, and it was on September 22nd, 2015. And as a result, HHFDC had 1 year until August 6, 2016, to enter into an agreement whereby the interest in the project could be acquired at a price determined by a formula that is determined by the IRS. And that price was $15,395,813. So when HHFDC did not find or get a bona fide offer at that contract price, the project was, by federal law and program rules, automatically freed from restrictive use provisions of the regulatory agreement and was entitled to deal with the property as it sees fit, subject only to a rent holding period of 3 years for the existing tenants. And we are currently in year 2 of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Murai, any follow-up on that? And I'm going to ask Mr. Kubota.
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Kubota.
Thank you for the summary about the qualified contract, and you're correct. I think the thing that all of us realize, if we've ever gone before the county property assessors, is that, you know, what one puts into a formula can be vastly different than depending upon whether you're the county or you're the landowner. And that discussion never took place in terms of like how do you make these determinations? There are several factors that go into like a regular assessment. One is comparable sales. Another is income stream, right? Another is like amortization of building, and we never got to that point. Nobody ever that I heard of, nobody ever really began to take a really serious look. They say that they followed a formula, but did anybody ever really check to see what that formula was? And after all, like, you know, in terms of getting values and things, I know that when you're trying to argue before the county as far as taxes like that, you know, you usually try and get an independent appraiser, not just the representative from the hotel. I mean, I've written a series of stories when I was a newspaper reporter. I think Stacey, I pointed it out to you, where Maui, I believe the Maui Marriott was arguing that their property was worth $14 million, and while they were in the process of selling their property for $21 million. And they won the argument on the $14 million, and then they sold their property for $21 million. You know, so this is just to say that, you know, we need to be more careful about making these assumptions. And I don't know why nobody raised these questions at that particular point, but I think they need to be raised again. I think that if I were asking, I'd ask for, well, what is the contract? 3,900 and Front Street Affordable Housing Partners. What is your contract? Show it to us. After all, we gave you the exemptions. We gave you the federal, more than 1.5 million in federal and state tax credits. And let's take a look at your books. Truly, that opens up a whole new vista. I'm not saying lawsuit. I'm just saying that you know, the taxpayers in this county deserve these answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Atai.
Thank you,
Kubota.
Thank you, Mr. Kubota, for your sharing and bringing that to light. Because according to my, you know, the findings that you've shared, you know, from back in 1999, the Maui County Council gave out more than $4 million in exemptions. And then you add this calculated $2.1 million in real property tax exemptions. So if you calculate and you do the research and backing it, the county, we've already given over 6.1 million.
Right.
You know, so we partners. What is the barato of if they sell? We have a $6 million position with this apartment building.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Atai. But did you include the park?
No.
Yeah, even that, yeah. So that's maybe another 1 million.
So with that, is it too late for us to do the economic calculations while?
No, my intent is to have us pass this resolution to support, because January is just around us, for our state legislators to, you know, inoculate that they have our support. But it doesn't mean that everything's going to be completely filed and buried. So we will continue and try and come up with our own pursuing. And that was something maybe perhaps we would have to try and refer that into budget committee to take into consideration all those numbers that you make mention, and maybe Corporation Council can do for us, is to see what kind of legal hold that we do have. I think your points are well taken, and that's the kind of discussion that we need to continue. Ms. Cochran, I see your green light on.
Thank you very much. So the reso chair is to urge. I'm trying to figure out where the hammer is.
There's no hammer in here except for the bill that they want to push through. My understanding, they're going to try again with their hammer in their bill, because we don't have a bill number This is not our bill. This is a resolution to support Senator Baker's and the rest of our representatives in the state legislature.
Okay, thank you. And for Mr. Marai, if I'm correct, in a case of an eminent domain act, the amount would be of the appraised value of the property. Do you know? And I think for this one, last appraisal was 8.7 mil.
Well, the thing is, we don't know whose appraisal this is.
Okay.
And even the $15.4 million, that's, based on what little bit I know, that's not based on any kind of like comparable sales. It's a formula, it's an IRS formula that takes into account the amount of the debt and, lots of different factors that most typical appraisers would not use. So that's my limited understanding of how these numbers came about, which is to say, we really don't know. And like I said, I don't know where this July 22nd, 2015 appraised value came from either. This is information that was just provided to us.
Okay. And then
also when anytime you, now again in my office I don't handle any kind of condemnation or eminent domain actions, but that doesn't mean that the county would able to get it for free. That means that the county would be forcing the owner to sell it at fair market value, whatever that number may be.
But there's a difference between fair market value and appraisal. I mean, that could be two separate numbers.
It could be two separate numbers, but,
Right. Okay. And then, Chair, for the department?
Sure. Yes.
So I see the prong here to go and support our state legislature, to keep Front Street apartments affordable. But, and just to rehash the thoughts or ideas out of your department, while that's going through and it's getting worked through the ledge, what are we going to be doing on behalf of this county?
So the department has been working with HHFDC to develop a piece of the villages of Leali'i into a 200-unit low-income rental project. We've met with some of the departments, and we've identified water sourcing as well as temporary water and temporary sewage. HHFDC has an agreement with DHHL. They have some money set aside, some millions, to find permanent sources of water. And HHFDC has indicated that they would do a package plant for sewage. Thank you.
Okay, and a follow-up on that, Chair?
Yes.
So, and what is and you feel real confident that this whole process of building out these units at Leali'i can be completed as early as August 4th of 2019? Because that's when all of these units are going to flip into market rate, and that's where the people here are very afraid of happening with nothing else, with other alternatives. So are you confident this could be completed and they can have an option to move in by August 4th of 2019?
No, this works hand in hand with the bills. It will not be completed by 2019. That would be literally impossible. But the bill authorizes HHFDC to negotiate with the project owners to keep the units affordable for a certain period of time until the units can be built.
Yeah,
that's one of the strategies.
May I add, and that's part of the, I guess, the attempts to come up with a plan from HHFDC in recognizing they have to go to the state legislature to release what we call, I think, their funding or whatever funding from their bucket to help subsidize in the meantime. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm not sure how HHFDC plans to fund it, but they are working on something, from what I understand.
But we don't have anything definite. Maybe I can make note next round, bring in HHFDC to have that conversation with us. I'd be willing to bring, ask if they would be here as a resource person in response to the plans that how HHFDC is involved with the efforts that coming from state legislature.
Yeah, I mean, that would be helpful, but I guess they kind of didn't jump on the opportunity when they were given, so I don't see why they'd be supportive now. But hopefully they are, and I just think it got messed up from there on. Also, it's interesting, Chair, Sun America, I think Mr. Murai recalls that company.
Oh, yeah.
We
do.
had some run-ins with these people. Here they are again, like, oh, what is
They're
going
investors. They invest into low income and then
Tweaking
they
us.
run away like bandits.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up. So it sounds like we're giving up on the idea of keeping Front Street apartments. So are the bill you were talking about, is that the bill you're working on with Senator Baker?
No.
Correct. It's HHFDC, the department, and Senator Baker and Representative McKelvey. And so it's to keep the units affordable or to acquire the units.
In Front Street?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, because I just thought you were speaking about this other thing you're trying to develop, and you're trying to keep these affordable.
I think that's a
until they can-
long-term plan.
That's a long-term plan.
Right,
We,
but
we
I mean,
need
we're not,
units
so we're not
regardless.
giving up on the idea of possibly condemning and purchasing the Front Street apartments. Is that in the bill, or?
It's in the bill.
Okay. Okay,
Right,
because
right.
I was getting confused. I thought you were saying that the bill was just going to try to extend it until you could get these other units up and running, but I'm hoping that we're still making a push to save these Front Street units.
The bill is to keep the units affordable, and it could be for a certain period of time, or it could be, however long they decide. It's a negotiation thing.
Okay, but in what I'm looking at with the previous bill was to condemn and buy the property. So is that out of the bill now?
No, that's still
That's
in the
still
bill.
in there?
But that
Okay.
It didn't pass.
Okay. No, it didn't, but I mean, I just wanted to find out what we're asking for going forward, and, want to make sure we're not just giving up on that, thinking we're going to build another one to replace it, so. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just say that I would love to continue this discussion, but I think we should pass this resolution because I think there's, the will is here. But I do think that, it's been a great discussion. I think we should continue this discussion and keep exploring the options and supporting options.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, and I do intend. Mr. White, hello, Mr. White. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank everybody that's come to testify today. I've been watching as I've been signing other documents and getting other things done. I wanted to come down because of the question of eminent domain, and it's something that's easy to throw around, but it's a very very challenging process, because what my understanding is that we don't go by we can be guided by an appraisal, but if you execute eminent domain, we immediately own the property. And then over the next year or two, a variety of appraisals will be getting involved. The courts will get involved, and ultimately the court decides what the fair market value is based on a comparison of appraisals. And looking at the current appraised value from our own real property tax department, I believe it's in the neighborhood of $24 million. And if you take the $8.3 million appraised value that Ms. Cochran mentioned and divide it by the number of square feet in the variety of buildings that they have, it's, without including the land cost, just dividing the 88,000 square feet of area into the 8.3, you get a building cost of about $94 a square foot. Actual building costs at this point are over $200 a square foot. So that doesn't include the land value, which the real property tax department says is in the neighborhood of $10 million. So I'm just, eminent domain sounds like such an easy thing, but it's not employed very often by the county, simply because you're making a decision without knowing what the final price is going to be, and it's often much higher than you expect. And so It's not an easy or surefire process. But I appreciate I appreciate you bringing the reso forward, and I think the best way for this to move forward is to get the pressure put on the state to provide the funding. And as you would imagine, I'll say, if you're going to keep all of our TAT, let it come back in the form of a purchase of Front Street Apartments.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Kubota, did you want to wrap it up with your last minute comments? I see you exercising, jumping up and down.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with Mike's observation because I'm familiar with the 24. My question was, well, here we have these guys who work for the county as appraisers. I mean, obviously, who do the assessments like that. And how much information were they fed by different say by the property owners like that, and how is that? It certainly would have been in the property owner's interest to inflate the price, knowing that they would never pay anything for it, and all of a sudden flip it. I'm not saying that was the case. I'm just saying they would have been very convenient. So I think it deserves more scrutiny on our part. The 24 million or whatever it is. And where did all this depreciation go for these buildings and things like that? I mean, really, all of a sudden, suddenly it's more valuable than it was, in 2001 by how much? Are we talking about the land or are we talking about the buildings? That's kind of interesting. So I'm saying that let's take a look at it and take it apart and scrutinize it. And who knows, frankly, my whole hope is that it won't get down to that. Once we begin to take it apart and then assess it and then ask people to open their books, maybe we can negotiate. Maybe we can find a settlement. And I think that that's actually the best route, because a win-win situation, make sure that they end up, getting something for it and everybody walks away happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry.
Mr. White and then Ms. Cochran.
Couldn't agree with Mr. Kubota more. I think the best outcome is one that's negotiated. And whether the guys at RPT are correct or not, even though the buildings have depreciated, depreciation is just it's a tax saving for the owner. It has nothing to do with the actual price. It can be depreciated, but as long as the buildings are in reasonable shape, the price tag can be a lot more wild than we imagine. So just a cautionary note, I'm not by any means an expert in this, but I do know that appraisals, there are generally 3 appraisers assigned. Two appraisers are picked, one by each side, and the third appraiser is picked by the 2 appraisers. And then they all do their work independently, and those things are brought together, and the court decides how to balance the interests.
Thank you. I know you're kind of an expert on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Cochran?
And so, Chair, I know IEM does really manini eminent domains all the time with little easements and things of that nature. Nothing on this scale, but we do accomplish eminent domains. And so, if I recall, the land portion is not for sale. We would never be looking for the land because that is this corporation, 3900 Corp. Has the land. And it's just the vertical dwellings that we would be looking to purchase, if at all. So the land would not be attached to the buildings. So that pricing doesn't need to be factored in, right? It's Weinberg who actually has the land, and they're not in the market for selling it. And we can be okay to not be in the market to buy it. But it's the actual dwellings and units that we want to preserve and protect for the people, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted that clear. Thank you.
Okay, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why the resolution is really general at this point. Because what Ellie says is something that I thought about too. Because when the Congress actually passed the enabling legislation that led to the changes in the IRS, there was only discussion in the wording about building. And that was what they used as wording, building. When it went to the IRS, then there was some people, at least one comment from advocacy group that said, why are you guys talking about land when they were talking about building? And there was some explanation that they made, but it doesn't necessarily, I guess it would be hard to find out what the intent is when the legislation was passed so long ago that maybe the people who passed it can't remember, but it's an option. Should we just buy the building? Should we buy the lease fee only? And there was one instance that was mentioned by the AARP Hawaii advocacy director, the new one, and he said, in Mo'iliili, they just bought the lease fee. Or they found somebody who wanted to buy the lease fee as a donation or for some reason, and eventually the HHA came through and said, hey, we'd like to do it ourselves. And so they did eventually. But I'm just saying that with the resolution allows us a broad option.
Right.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Good discussion. Any further discussion? If not, members, I'll read forth so that the public can also understand what we're talking about with the resolution. So allow me to read the resolution. Whereas Front Street Apartments located adjacent to Kenui Street and Waine'i Street, Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii consists of 142 affordable housing units and related structures totaling 6 buildings on 8.538 acres of land and situated on property identified by tax map key paren 2 4-5-003:013 semi, and whereas in addition to certain exemptions and waivers provided by the county, the state of Hawaii and federal governments provided more than $1.5 million in tax credits to develop Front Street Apartments, and whereas Front Street Apartments was intended to remain affordable for 50 years according to an affordability commitment expiring on December 31st, 2051, and whereas a loophole in the Internal Revenue Service Tax Code allows for owners, Front Street Affordable Housing Partners, to sell the complex after 15 years, thereby removing Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental market. And whereas West Maui, including Lahaina, has the highest average rents in the county and currently provides an insufficient number of low-income housing for the area, causing many West Maui residents to move or travel outside of the region, further contributing to increased traffic congestion and burdening roadways and infrastructure. And whereas an estimated 75 to 80% of Front Street apartment tenants are employed, but will be unable to afford rent if the complex is sold, while the remaining 15 to 20% of tenants are disabled or retired and living on fixed incomes, and whereas Maui County as a whole is experiencing an increase in homelessness, and there is a continuous struggle to provide affordable housing units for residents. And whereas over the next 10 years, Maui alone is in need of 13,949 affordable units, or over 1,000 affordable units per year, in order to meet the community's growing demands for affordable housing. And whereas the removal of Front Street Apartments from the affordable rental unit inventory will exacerbate the affordable housing crisis on Maui and in our state. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the County of Maui that it does hereby urge the Governor of the State of Hawaii and the Hawaii State Legislature to support affordable housing at Front Street Apartments, and that certified copies of this resolution be transmitted to the Governor of the State of Hawaii, the President of the State Senate, the Speaker of the State House of Representatives, the county's delegation to the State Legislature, the Mayor of the County of Maui, the Corporation Council, and the Director of Human Housing and Human Concerns, and I also wish to add to that list, I'd like for the Executive Director, the certified copies also be sent to the Executive Director of the Hawaii Housing, Finance, and Development Corporation, or HHFDC, to also receive a copy of this resolution. If there are no objections, staff will incorporate the change as a non-substantive revision to the resolutions. Yeah. So members, my recommendation, of course, needless to say, if there is no further discussion, the Chair will entertain a motion to recommend adoption of the revised proposed resolution entitled Urging the Governor of the State of Hawaii and the Hawaii State Legislature to support affordable housing at Front Street Apartments.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Bob Carroll and second by Member Kelly King. Any further discussion to this motion? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, members. We have 5 ayes, no noes, and 2 excused. So at this time, members, if there are no objections, I will. No, I'm not deferring this matter. We'll file the. Okay. Recognizing as passing this resolution, and because we want to continue this conversation and all the wait for the bills and everything else, I will, if there are no objections, defer this matter.
No objections.
Members, this concludes today's agenda. I want to thank our staff, Tammy Farias, Samalo Mataafa, and Mimi Desjardins, but most of all, I want to thank all of you for giving me a quorum. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.